Hello, everyone. My name is Alice Benitez. I am the Business Development Manager for IBL. Today, we're getting to know our IP Group lead, Eric Goldman. Eric has a distinguished track record with over 30 years of experience serving top talent and technology innovators. His experience includes representing the writers of the acclaimed musical Come From Away, navigating international licensing for YouTube star Blippi, and providing counsel to BroadwayHD. Eric's expertise spans private placement financings, intellectual property, and the evolving intersection of entertainment and technology, including groundbreaking work with music distribution through NFTs. Additionally, he has expanded his practice to include mediation and coaching, having completed rigorous training to better support his clients. So, Eric, it's great to have you here today. We're excited to get into some of your experience. So I first wanted to start off with you sharing what first attracted you to technology and entertainment.
I have this running joke that everything I know about life I learned from Star Trek. I know that's probably not what people want to hear from a lawyer, but in my case, it happens to be true. You know, when I was a kid, I was always fascinated by stories and storytellers, and one of the best examples of that was Star Trek. You know, I was just really drawn by the way the creators of that show used technology to raise challenging questions and to tell really thought-provoking stories. So it was really interesting to me. I think one of the reasons that property has endured for so long is that they have been willing to say, hey, this technology exists, it's impacting us this way. What does that mean for the human experience? And it really drew me in. And that was kind of the genesis. And ever since, I've been drawn to people who tell stories, use technology to tell stories, and use technology to kind of challenge the status quo.
Great. From the start of your career to now, how has that evolved and how have these fields evolved? Because I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes within that time.
Well, I mean, how has my career evolved? You know, when I started out, my first job out of law school was working for a copyright guru named Stanley Rothenberg. Stanley had the distinction of losing a very famous law case. It was the Mayfair decision, and it was a decision about whether or not a film could be distributed on television. Stanley lost. The contract didn't specifically mention television, and so law was made. And now it's kind of standard practice that when you are doing a grant of rights in any media, you grant rights in any media now known or devised hereafter, so that you don't fall into the trap that Stanley fell into with his clients. Anyway, I started out as a researcher for Stanley, writing research memos, and stayed there for a couple of years. And over time, I just kind of gravitated to different things. I wanted to have more client contact. I wanted to be much more integrally involved in the process of lawyering. And that's what I ended up doing. At this point, research is not the primary thing that I do because I've done enough research that I kind of know the parameters of what I'm talking about. A lot of what I do is just client-facing, understanding what the client's goals are, and developing a plan, a method for them to achieve their goals, navigate pitfalls, and be successful.
Great. Would you say that it's more complex now or less complex than it was at the beginning when you first started in that field?
My personal opinion is that it's not more complex. I have had the experience of seeing new uses and new technologies emerge over the course of my career. The way that you approach those new technologies and those new uses is relatively constant. So what am I talking about? I am old enough that I can remember a time before rap was popular, and I can remember a time before sampling in music was popular. And I can remember how all the legal issues that were presented when artists started sampling other artists in their work, and how the lawyers went crazy and the business people sat down and worked it out. And that was kind of a fascinating process to see how that evolved. That, now it's standard practice. If you're sampling a song in your song, you give a medley credit. Who knew? I've seen the emergence CD-ROMs back when CD-ROMs were a thing. I've seen the emergence of smartphones. I've seen the emergence of social media. And it's always kind of the same analysis. What does this new technology mean for intellectual property protection? How do I succeed in this new media while protecting my intellectual property assets? And how do I avoid infringing other people's rights? So it doesn't get more complex. It just gets, I don't know what the opposite of complex is, but it becomes a way of life to adapt to these emerging technologies and emerging forms of media.
Yeah, it just feels like there's like more pieces that are constantly being added to the puzzle, as more technology comes out and different things happen. So I wanna move on from that and talk a little bit about how you got to IBL and what your role is here.
How did I get to IBL? Alexander Rodriguez, who is one of the founding partners, recruited me. He found me on LinkedIn, I think it was, and we started talking. He liked the kind of work that I did, and I liked him, and I liked Aaron Crown, the other founding partner, and I liked the idea of it's a distributed law firm. It wasn't something that I had seen before. So we started to work on some projects, and originally we were going full bore into the crypto universe. We were going to be a crypto law firm. We were going to help clients navigate the crypto landscape. And then the business went into what is referred to as a crypto winter, and business activity in that sphere kind of slowed. And so we started to talk about other things that we could do. And one of the things we talked about was, well, let's start an intellectual property group at IBL. Let's expand into different technologies, different media, and that's what we're doing now. And we're kind of having a lot of fun with it.
Great. And kind of speaking on that, of like all the different hats that you wear, I want to talk about the convergence of technology and entertainment and how you see those fields merging with intellectual property and AI, and kind of how that may evolve.
That's a complex question. I will say this, and this is what I tell clients all the time, that any business, any industry that has resisted the emergence of a new technology has disappeared. Movie studios were not happy when people started buying video recorders, and they went to court to try and stop it. Record stores were very unhappy with online distribution of music, and they tried to stop it. And the people that resisted the change, the industries that resisted the change were swept away. So as a general rule, I always tell people, this is happening. There's no point in fighting it. You're going to have to make your peace with it, find a way to make it work for you, and find a way to succeed. It's just a particular approach that I have adopted that I have helped people find success with. So is technology merging with entertainment more than it has before? I don't know historically that I agree with that. Like I said before, I have seen technologies come and go. Books went to CD-ROM, went to Kindle. Now most people read their books online or have them read to them in an audiobook. And that's been going on for a long time. A lot of people have stopped watching movies in movie theaters because they are able to recreate really high quality movie experiences in their own home. Is that radical? Well, if you ever read Fahrenheit 451, that kind of presaged people having TV screens on every wall of their house and having interactive experiences with entertainment properties. So, I don't know that it's gotten more complex. AI is very interesting. AI is very interesting because that's presented some new challenges. One, getting copyright protection for works created by AI is not fully possible right now. Getting patent protection for innovations created by AI is not fully possible right now. There needs to be some human involvement in the creative process, in the innovative process, for the federal government to grant protection to works. And that's going to play out. That's going to be kind of fascinating to watch. It's also going to be very fascinating to watch what happens as more and more creators find ways to stop AI companies from using their work to train AI products. As more and more people pull their intellectual property from data sets that AI companies can use to train their products. And my personal fear is that the more we force AI to be trained on public domain materials, the more we limit what AI can produce to being grounded on the works of dead white men. And we've all seen what the limitations are when your creative universe is limited to the output of dead white men.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you said about copywriting AI and how it's not possible right now. How far do you think we are from it actually being able to get copyrighted?
I don't know that it's ever going to happen. I mean, what you can do right now, if you, let's say you write a book and you do some research and you put inputs into AI and AI feeds you back some information and you incorporate that information into your book, you would have to disclose that to the Copyright Office that, AI helped in the creation this work, and you would have to exclude the work product of the AI system from copyright protection. And I don't know that that's going to change.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's something that people are constantly trying to make happen because so much is moving so quickly in that world. I'm sure it's going to be, they're going to try and put up a fight, but who knows if it's actually going to get done eventually,
I think that there are vocal advocates on both sides of that conversation. And yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah. Are there any innovative tools or methods that are currently transforming how AI impacts the licensing and distribution of intellectual property?
Well, I think, AI is so new that everything is relatively innovative. Certainly, the interfaces are more intuitive. They are also everywhere. There's really no way to escape interacting with AI. I think that the pendulum is swinging in favor of AI right now. I don't know how long that's going to last. I know that many people get very frustrated when they want, to get someone on the phone to help them, and they're forced to deal with an AI agent that just is not capable of handling robust conversation. So I think that everything is kind of new right now. Nothing is truly settled, and we all just have to see how it plays out. And we're all talking about the algorithms, how the algorithms are selecting what you see in your social media feed, how the algorithms are selecting what Netflix tells you this is something that you would like. And we're going to have to see how successful those can be.
Yeah.
What is going to be the upper limit? What AI can do without human guidance?
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of on edge trying to see what's next, like there's all this great stuff out there, but what is the ceiling for it, like do we stop because, like you said, in certain things we need that human interaction and it kind of limits it, or just to see how far it can go? Really, I think we're waiting to see.
I will tell you, I think the use of AI that I found the most inspiring, the recent use that I found most inspiring, I don't know how I found out that there was a new John Lennon song. I know it's not physically possible for there to be a new John Lennon song for obvious reasons. But what had happened was John Lennon had recorded a demo of a song, and he recorded it by putting a portable tape recorder on top of his piano and playing the song and singing the song. And there was background noise, and so the recording was not commercially viable. What AI was able to do was take that recording, separate out the piano line from the vocal line, and then using other vocal recordings of John Lennon, enhance the vocal recording so that it was recognizable as John Lennon, make this song the recording of this song of a quality high enough to be released. Now, I thought that was really innovative, and I hadn't really thought of that kind of a use for AI.
Yeah, I think that always goes back to kind of the conflict that people have with social media. If it creates more good than bad, it could be used for both. So it kind of always goes back to that conversation.
Yes, I mean, certainly when you're using AI for deep fakes, when you're using AI to create performances of performers who are no longer with us, that is a questionable practice, and people have concerns about it. And I know they've done it with Tupac Shakur. I know they've done it with Frank Sinatra. I know they've done it with Michael Jackson. And people, they look askance at it somewhat. But this, I think, was kind of in a different category.
Yeah.
It was, it reminded me of the people whose job it is to restore the paintings, old masters. It was a restoration as opposed to a replacement or competition.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. I think it lets it live on, but in a way that's, more natural and not, like you're saying, like trying to replace what was there before.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about an article that you recently did for the IBL website, where you highlighted the importance of protecting IP for startups, covering their copyrights, trademarks, patents, and trade secrets. How should startups prioritize those protections in the early stages? And what's most important to you?
You know that old joke that to a hammer, everything looks like a nail? To an intellectual property lawyer, all of your intellectual property should be a priority. So I may be the wrong person to ask. You're going to get a skewed answer from me. But I will tell you that in our marketplace today, where everything is so dependent on social media and so dependent on brand awareness, to not make sure that your brand name is something that you can actually register and protect, to not make sure that the product that you're developing is something that you fully own the rights in, can be a very costly mistake. And so I think this is something I always encourage people to pay attention to these issues. Make sure you have the proper agreements in place with everybody working on your project. Make sure you have the proper licenses in place with everything that you are using to develop your own product. Make sure that the name you're picking is not being used by somebody else and is eligible for protection. Because why get very far down the road and realize you have to regroup and rebrand before you even launch?
Would you say out of the common mistakes you see startups make is that probably one of the biggest that they don't check for that beforehand?
I would say the saddest conversation I've had with people is when I tell them, listen, this name that you want to use, I did a Google search, I did a trademark search. I don't think it's available. And if it is available, I don't think it's protectable. So I don't think it's the best choice for you. Because at that point, they've probably invested in logos and product design, and maybe they've been talking to potential sources of financing, and to have to rework that and to say, hey, we kind of skipped this very basic step, it's a bad look, in addition to being costly and time consuming. So that, having to tell people, yeah, that name that you've been using, you can't use it anymore. That's really one of the hardest things I've had to do.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because with something so simple as like a Google search being, it's a small step, but that can change so much, and avoid a bigger issue later on.
Yeah.
So when I look ahead and talk about emerging trends in technology and IP, is there anything that you're most excited about?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I would really like to be doing more of is looking at cryptocurrency and NFTs as part of project finance. Most projects, entertainment projects, are financed through a securities offering, a private placement. You can also do that private placement using a proprietary coin or cryptocurrency. You can also incorporate a non-fungible token, an NFT, into that offering. And that does a couple of things. One, it allows for your investors to be part of a conversation, because maybe the coins would have some ability to vote on certain issues. Another thing that it does is really build better CRMs, client relations management, because you're giving somebody an asset that they can only get from you. And third, the coin, the NFT, may develop value on its own, separate and apart from any profits that they may see from the entertainment property itself. So from my vantage point, it would be really interesting to start developing those systems for people. When you say to people, hey, you're a Broadway fanatic, you have a collection of Broadway playbills going back 50 years that it's your pride and joy. So obviously you understand that people like to collect these things. Well, why wouldn't you want to create a new class of collectible that could have value on its own down the road? That's something I'd really like to get involved with.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it sure looks like there's a big future for that too. So we are so thankful for your time today. We love talking to you and getting more insight from you. But before you go, we do have a question we want to ask, kind of a more personal question. So is there any hobbies or interests that you have outside of the legal field that you're passionate about?
It's interesting. I don't talk about this a lot in a professional context. A lot of people don't know that I'm a single father. I adopted my daughter, who is now, she's going to be 21 in October. So that has been a very big part of my life. And I've been really fortunate that I've chosen a career that has allowed me to be, a full-time lawyer and a full-time dad. I also have a spiritual practice that is deeply meaningful to me. I'm involved in a lot of interfaith activities. And so outside of the office, I do have a pretty full personal life that gives me a lot of joy.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. We really appreciate you opening up and sharing more about your experience, your personal life and also your work life. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.